That's okay. We can talk about it. We can talk about it. But my question is, did the bananas really make it scary? No. It was the information, right? The information, not the bananas. It was the information. But it's just calculus. Huh? Yeah. We definitely will. Last year, if you had checked all the memes, all the tweets about calculus, you would have seen potatoes and you would have seen bananas. You would have seen potatoes and you would have seen bananas. You guys are a mess. This is nasty. Because everything had to be negative for the F value. Because they were taking it away. Yeah, Charlotte.
The answer times out the number, like for the first one, well, like for the pound.
Okay, I realized my fatal error.
You put the first answer, and then what did you put? You rounded it? Yeah. No, they would mark wrong. I told you 3 decimal places, always. Always. Only if it says to the nearest whole number. Otherwise, no. Always 3 decimals. At least 3 decimals, I should say. So you guys rearranged my whole room. Okay. Where? Oh. Not this time. Sometimes yes, Austin. Sometimes yes. Just not on this one.
If it's for the second one,
Thanks, Zach. He's trying. You said the rate at which the bananas are being removed is -8? That's okay. That's okay. But you understand what they're saying. Like, it's best, Charlotte, it's best to say increasing or decreasing. I don't think they take off if you don't, but you should make a note to yourself. If positive, say increasing by positive. If negative, say decreasing by positive. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's how they always do it. So you want to look as close to the answer key as possible. All right, guys, do you have any questions as far as grading first? Grading first. Whether or not something's right.
An explanation, I guess.
Okay. If you wrote 0 to 2 of f of t dt without the decimal, that's 1 point. With the 2.0511 pounds, then that would get the other point. You didn't show that? Okay, so you get... What didn't you do then? The sentence? Okay, so hold on. But you got the 20.05? How many pounds? Well, I've told you guys that you can steal what they say, right? So what they're doing is they're stealing what they're saying in the sense of explaining what they're doing. But technically that part did not say explain or justify. So you should be okay. The only dilemma is my advice would be to steal the wording and sound smart. But they didn't say explain, but you should have put pounds. You should have put pounds removed, or pounds at least. Like, you should put a unit on it for sure. So I would make yourself a note, but you could have possibly gotten both points. It didn't say to explain, didn't say to interpret, but they do like the full sentences because if you guys don't know, there's this thing called Common Core in the state of California. It's okay. But Common Core says you should be able to write about the answer, not just give the numeric value. Write about the answer. So what they're doing is, all the public schools are doing Common Core. So the schools are all talking about you should be able to give a full statement for your answer. So as far as I know, as of 2 years ago, you would have had 2 points. As far as I know right now, so steal the wording. Steal the wording, make a nice little sentence as to what the answer is, and you're done. No, pause, hold on. I need to go ahead and look. F is a rate? Okay, cool. And it's pounds per hour? Okay, so you could do pounds per hour, or you could do pounds per hour squared. Yes, that would be totally fine. They're just going ahead and using that same, like using the words to explain the math. But pounds over hours squared, totally fine. Tyler?
This is not relevant to this, but on the physics exam,
Yeah.
it's each FRQ is 15 points.
Okay.
So that basically you have to justify for every one, even if they don't say justify, because there's points in like the justification. It makes no sense. I don't know why. It's cool.
But that's how they're grading it?
Yeah, on like all of them.
Okay.
Justification.
Which this one, like the problem is on this one, the answer key still shows answer integral, and it doesn't say anything about the actual sentence writing. Problem is, I just haven't been in a workshop in the last year and a half to hear how the grading's changed, but I don't think it has.
I have a question about grading.
Yeah.
So I got the wrong value for F prime and 7, but my justification included, this is my justification. This is the rate and this is the bananas of, the rate at which the rate of bananas being taken off the shelf is decreasing.
No.
No?
Here's the struggle. When you say the rate of the rate, you're right. This is the rate of the rate. But as soon as you say decreasing, you're pointing to another derivative. Increasing, decreasing points to another derivative. So you're actually talking that what you wrote is the third derivative. Because you're saying the rate of the rate, the second derivative, is decreasing. Oh, his rate. So either say the rate is decreasing, so the rate's rate, what the number means, or say the rate of the rate is negative 8 point. Does that make sense? Yeah, David. Yeah, that's just what Nathan was saying. So on letter B, now hold on, pause. First of all, help me out. No one should have solved that derivative by hand. No one should have solved that derivative by hand. That wastes time and it makes it so that you might get it wrong. Question, should you have already plugged in your function somewhere? Yes. Struggle. Computer. Okay. So even though you should have... All right, Lord. This is how it needs to be. This is how it needs to be. Okay. I can't show you in the calculator. I'm sorry. You should have put this function into, I would say, your y1. Then you could use it both for integrals and for derivatives and for anything else. I would have put this in y1. Then I would have used the y1 in my integral. Then I would have used on the home screen what? How do I take derivatives on the calculator? You could do alpha trace if you can see it on the graph, but it's so much easier on the home screen, not looking at a graph, worrying about a window, to do math 8 or alpha window. Alpha window, there's an n-derived function. Okay? And then with your derivative, you could have plugged in the y1, you could have plugged in the point. No one should have solved this by hand. Okay? So literally, you should have plugged it into your calculator, put in such that x equals 7, gotten the answer, and been done. The wording, though, it does say to justify or explain the meaning and the context of the problem. You had to either say, who is F? Oh, the rate at which bananas are being removed. Especially my kiddos that English is not your first language. Steal the wording of the questions. They give you exactly the words to use. So, the rate at which bananas are being removed from the display table is y decreasing because we're talking about the rate's derivative. And the rate's derivative shows me whether the rate is increasing or decreasing. So Nathan was asking why he couldn't say the rate of the rate is decreasing, but the problem is the rate of the rate is actually the second derivative already, and when you put the increasing or decreasing word in the explanation, I am so sorry guys, we're trying so hard to be productive today. The rate of the rate increasing or decreasing would point to the third derivative. So long story short, the derivative shows me whether or how the original quantity is increasing or decreasing. Since the derivative is negative, the original quantity is decreasing at that rate. Hold on, who was the original quantity? F, the rate at which bananas were being removed. So the derivative shows me increasing, decreasing of F. Who is F? The rate at which bananas are being removed. So the rate at which bananas are being removed is decreasing. Wait a minute, did you put something about after the store has been open 7 hours or when t equals 7? If you didn't, mark it down. You need to put the reference point. 7 is important because this rate is not constant the whole time. So you could either say after the store has been open 7 hours, or you could say when t equals 7 hours, or at t equals 7 hours. The rate is decreasing, but you have to put in that time component. Yeah, the value, so the negative 8.120, and then the meaning, 1 and 1. Okay, any other questions that we have as far as grading or just explaining, Tyler?
Is it technically pointing to a third derivative if I say the rate at which the rate bananas are being taken from the display 7 hours from the beginning of the day is negative 8.1?
No, you're good, because you say the rate of the rate is equal to. But as soon as you put increasing, decreasing, you're pointing to another. But rate of rate, you're okay. Yeah, rate of rate, you're okay. We're okay? Do you guys understand why there's subtraction at C? Yeah. Increasing or decreasing the number of pounds, that's just looking at the first rate, which is the F's and the G's, and we have to subtract the ones being added and the ones being subtracted. So we just cared about whether the rate is positive or negative. So we had to go ahead and say our employee is adding, that's G, minus the customer's taking, that's F. So just G minus F, positive or negative. And what made letter D a little bit weird? D was hard. It was one of the hardest ones I've seen. One of the hardest of these types. You have two different bounds. That's what I think is tricky. Because you have customers start taking right away from 0 to 8. The customers are taking as soon as the store opens. So that makes that subtracting customers taking, because this says that customers remove at a rate. So remove is the negative at a rate. So you had to do minus on this one. This kind of answers that one question you asked about integration as net change, always positive. Sometimes you need to put a minus instead of a plus. They use the word remove, so take away. They didn't actually make the rate negative itself. So you had to do the minus yourself, and you had to do the minus yourself. So, but the worker, the employee, didn't start adding the bananas until 3 hours in. Does that make sense? So he came on shift at 3 hours, so he was adding from 3 to 8, but the customers were taking from 0 to 8. And then what did we start with? Integration as net change says. Does it make sense? Now, pause, think. Twitter feed blew up about bananas last year. How many problems had they seen with ins and outs and rates and quantities? And they'd seen tons. Why'd they get stuck on the bananas? I don't know. They just wanted to complain, so then it was about bananas. It was the easiest one. You can't complain about the graph of the first derivative. You're like, well, duh. But bananas, oh, there were bananas. There was a worker. Anyway, potatoes. Yeah, it's not a, but here's what I need you guys to realize. Whatever they throw at you this year, BC actually still needs to, they're going to do a quick little lottery if they can guess the type of problem that'll be on there.
That's awesome.
I told them that they could, and then I don't know what the winner gets, something or others. But it doesn't matter what they give you. There can be snow, there can be hail, there can be gravel, there can be going to or from school, there can be bananas, there can be penguins, there can be kangaroos, there can be whales, there can be, I don't know. Things are dying, things are being born, things are being added, things are being distracted. Did the bananas make a difference?
Yes.
No.
Because the bananas are going to...
All that made... Okay, we don't have time or mathematical skills to deal with that, but coming back. The math is all there, and it's all things that you've seen. Does that make sense? Yeah, they can throw something at you. You're like, what? This looks weird. Okay, go to another FRQ, come back and say, the math is there. I know it's there. Okay, I want you guys to go ahead, and we could go back. We could talk about questions, but I need to get one more FRQ in today. So let's go ahead and go to number 5. Non-calculator. Number 5, non-calculator. Tomorrow, real quick, before we start number 5, we should have time to take it and grade it. But just before we're all confused and into number 5, eyes on me, eyes on me. When you see, you think is due tomorrow. We're going to go over questions, clarifications as I read through. Oh, hey, AP loves to, and I'll put little tidbits along the way. When you see, you think is due tomorrow. But the very first thing tomorrow, we're going to finish up FRQ number 6. Then we're going to go over when you see, you think. And then as we have time Thursday, Friday, we'll go over any additional questions you guys have on this. I can post the answer key to this online if you want some extra time with the answer key as well. But we're going to finish number 5 today. very beginning of tomorrow, finish number 6, grade the when you see you thinks, and then we're just kind of brainstorming, going over questions that you have. And maybe I'll be throwing Thursday, Friday, Monday little bits and pieces of most missed calculus problems. Sound good? All right, on your marks. Get set. Go. Non-calculator, just in case. P.S. Motion goes a little faster, so I'm just putting up 12 minutes just because you wouldn't want to take much more than that, if possible. Check your other FRQs. So for those of you guys that have finished, let's go ahead and grade. For those of you guys still working, don't look up yet. That's why you're not supposed to do it. Technically on A, you could have definitely... You don't need to simplify. All you need to say is positive or negative. On which one? Give me a second, because a couple people might still be finishing trying. Give me just a second. But on A, you could have said V or you could have said X prime. Either way is good. Letter B, you get no points for just the sign chart, but if you took the sign chart and put it into words, then you would have gotten the points. On B, if you just did the sign charts or something similar, you would have had no points unless you explained it in words.
Wait a second, they don't even ask us to justify. This is just as bad as physics.
Oh, pause. I didn't realize I didn't make the question. So they did not say to justify or explain?
He says just final times.
Okay, and that's okay. You could have done the sign charts.
Wow.
But your analysis, hold on, your analysis would have needed to be that they had the same sign, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Your analysis would have needed to be they had the same sign. So the sign chart would have been sufficient. Usually, I apologize, usually they ask you to justify or explain. Since they did not, it's not like physics. It's okay.
I got the sign chart. Oh, no, I didn't.
Has anybody not started grading yet?
Hey, never mind.
Okay, so David, what was your question on letter A? Did the question say moving left or moving right? Okay, so moving left, that's all about the direction of movement, not the actual position. Because let's say my initial, like the origin is this podium for me. Like at t equals 5 or whatnot, I don't care for letter A, I don't care where I am relative to the podium. I don't care if I'm here or there. I care about am I moving. That's all about velocity sign.
Yeah.
So on the forever card, velocity sign determines moving left or moving right. So then what we needed to do was see where velocity is negative. And velocity is negative. Guys, they didn't ask you at a time, right? They said for an interval. So as we take the derivative, which we had to do by hand, and as we thought about critical numbers and endpoints, etc., we would have seen t equals 1 is a 0. And as you look down here, you could have thought of t minus 5 and 2. That's not going to work. You could have done a quadratic formula.
Yeah.
X equals negative b plus or minus square root. Some of you might need to write this down when you see you think b squared minus 4ac. Hey, it's imaginary! All over 2. I don't care because it's imaginary.
Oh,
There
yes.
are no zeros.
I just
Pause! You could be super cool though. You could have been super cool and taken the derivative and realized that the relative minimum would have occurred at 2t minus 2 would have occurred at 1 and plugged in 1 and realized it's a positive number, so it's not even going to touch the axis. It's facing up and it's up on the axis. Anyway, there are no zeros in that guy. He's our only critical number. So then when I plug in for my sign chart and I test the 4 one, And we've had negative after 1, positive, so 0 to 1. I think this technically is supposed to start at 0.
And then the page.
Since velocity is negative, the particle is moving to the left. Does that kind of make sense? Tyler,
Don't mean to brag, but I simplified right.
Wait. So
I'm
wait.
proud of you.
On that interval,
Never did that again. Okay.
Never
Never
did that.
did that again.
on that
Maybe.
interval, why can't you include 1? Because I did that.
Because it's
Because at
0.
1, the velocity is 0, which means the particle is stopped. At least momentarily.
Or they need to be they need to be
Momentarily.
curly brackets, or they need to be not used.
At zeros, even on the graphs of derivatives, we always do the open.
Do know.
Yeah.
I mean,
At 0 itself, if you you see how I have my sign chart at 0,
Look at this.
it was also positive, the velocity. Or sorry, negative, so that's why I wrote it.
That's just asking to get it.
Okay, kiddos, what am I checking tomorrow?
When you see
When you see it all the way done. When you see think. What do you need to be studying for the final
forevers, baby.
Forevers. And I just emailed out optional exam number 4, which is the newly formatted practice exam from last year's class, mock AP. So also an excellent one, like the 2017. And then there are the other optional exams because all calculus AP practice is good, but if I were you, I would start on that bonus exam. All bonuses due on Monday. Are we tracking?
Yeah,
Are
we're
you
good.
allowed to dis-
Is it
Sorry.
is it Monday in class?
Huh?
Or is it Monday in class every Tuesday or by then?
I'll say Monday by 3:30. How about that? Because I don't want you guys in here till late trying to, and I need to go baking and cooking anyway. Bye guys.
Misty, are you allowed to dis-
this one? Do you have to do integration as an chain? Because you have you
I
can.
think initial plus some.
Because I'm like you have a indefinite integral. I don't know. I was thinking like. I guess I wasn't thinking initial position. That's why.
You could kind of get the position function, plug in, get
Yeah.
a seat. That works.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Because you're still using the initial. Yeah.
I'm so proud of myself that I didn't mess up.